Hey everyone, we are wrapping up our series on the first River Valley civilizations. Our last is the Indus River Valley, which flourished between 2600 to 1700 BCE. And the two city states that we're really going to talk about in the IRV are Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. Now, the Indian subcontinent is divided into three regions, and we know that the very first civilization was Harappa. And the first farmers who were there domesticated wheat, barley, and dates. And this goes back to about 7000 BCE. And India's agriculture is very dependent on the monsoon season, as well as rationing of water. Now, the Indus River carries a lot of silt and it floods twice a year. And because it flooded twice a year, farmers could actually produce two crops a year, even though there's not a lot of rainfall. And the two city-states, Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, are located in modern-day Pakistan. So let's talk, guys. Mohenjo-Daro was the second largest settlement. And one of the things that really stands out about Mohenjo-Daro is a very large bath. It was 40 feet high and 23 feet wide. And the IRV provided water for drinking, bathing, and sewage removal to all residents. So, guys, this is an ancient civilization that has plumbing. Both settlements were surrounded by brick walls. The streets were laid out in a grid pattern, and that covered drainage system carried everything away, brought in fresh water. There were remains of a citadel that was probably used as a center of authority. And both Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro had city centers surrounded by farmland like any other city state. And Harappa was located between agricultural land and pastoral economies. So we've got farmers on one side, herders on the other. And Harappa may have benefited from this because they could have been a center for trade in copper, tin, and precious stones. And one thing that really makes me sad about teaching Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro is that everything I say is could have been, probably, may have been a result of, because we don't know a lot about the IRV. What we can figure out is that because of the trade that was happening, because of the well-laid grid patterns of the roads and the sewer removal, there had to be some kind of central government. In terms of the culture of the IRV, we do know they had better access to metal than the Egyptians and the Mesopotamians. And because of that, they were able to create material goods as well as luxury items. And some things that we do know in terms of technological achievements of the IRV include really awesome irrigation systems, a potter's wheel, a kiln to actually bake bricks, and they were very skilled at working with bronze. And again, they carried out extensive trade within Iran, Afghanistan, and even Mesopotamia. There is evidence of that. But again, we know little of the identity, of the origins, or the fate of the people in the IRV. Part of the problem of why we don't know anything is the Indus River Valley civilizations had a writing system, and that writing system had anywhere from 400 to 450 different signs, and similar signs are found in both Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. But unfortunately, they haven't been deciphered. And scholars don't know if these signs stand for words, syllables, or sounds. And Harappans also had finer stone tools, and they were able to remove toxins from nuts that grew in the wild. Unfortunately, after 1900 BCE, the sites seemed to get smaller for some reason. No one really knows why. And the societies just seem to collapse. Natural calamities seems to be the most likely region. the most likely reason to this. Internal conflict, external invasions. But again, we'll never know for sure. So the Rig Veda dates back to 1500 BCE. And this is a very important work in Indian culture. And what we do know is that Indo-Europeans migrated into the area and they brought the Rig Veda with them. And the Rig Veda consists of 1,028 hymns in Sanskrit. And the Rig Veda was actually transmitted orally from 1500 BCE to 1000 CE. And that's when it was finally written down. And the hymns of the Rig Veda convey many details about everyday life. And they also indicate that Indo-Europeans reached northwest India first. And the Indo-Europeans called themselves Aryan, which is a Sanskrit word for noble. And this is going to create a lot of problems later because the Indo-Europeans, they're in northwest India and they do have lighter skin. But here's the thing, there's already people living in India and they're actually living in southern India. And what we've talked about before, the closer you are to the equator, the more pigment you have in your skin. And this is going to create a lot of tension between the Aryans, who are the Indo-Europeans, and the Dravidians, who are the Indians already living there. We'll talk more about that later. And the Indo-Aryan religion is called Vedic, after the Rig Veda. And the roots of later Hinduism are Vedic, but the religion practices are very, very different. And scholars tend to disagree about the religion in ancient India, but what everyone can agree on is that the Rig Veda provided a central unifying force. And the argument that can be made about the influence of the Rig Veda and the Vedic faith on Hinduism is that Hinduism didn't really develop until Buddhism became very popular in India. And the god of fire and death, Indra, is mentioned in the Rig Veda. And found in the Rig Veda, you'll also have rituals that honor the gods. You have rites of passage, priests that could administer rituals. And there's a lot in there about Vedic social customs and classes. And we know that the earliest Vedic peoples were nomadic, migrating with seasons to feed the herds. And the most important animal was the horse, and that's going to be very important later on. Just saying. Remember that, please. And a couple more things about the society. The Rig Veda shows that the Vedic people had very diverse occupations, which makes sense because we know there were different classes and different social customs. What's also important is that women in Vedic society were almost equal to men within the same class. And women could be educated, they could choose their own husbands, they could inherit property, and then widows could actually remarry. And that's very important too, because that is really going to change in different empires in India who practice Hinduism. And the Rig Veda is the oldest religious text that is still in use today. And again, transformation of the Indus Valley, we don't know what happened. Again, natural calamities, most likely possibility, but when the urban centers collapse, way of life collapsed too. All right, so just a couple of quick comparisons. Things that Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the IRV had in common. They all developed along river systems so they could have an adequate water supply. They had political structures for organization of labor and to provide irrigation systems. And you have a kingship in both Egypt and Mesopotamia. But again, Egypt's kings, they're divine. Mesopotamia's are not. Religious and cultural comparisons as well. Nile floods, predictable. Hey, we're all happy. Tigris, Euphrates, very fearful. It's very scary. All three civilizations developed architectural techniques for building large structures. You've got the ziggurats, you've got the pyramids, and you've got that large bath structure. Quick refresher, Egyptian women appeared to have enjoyed more equality in society than Mesopotamian women. Women in Vedic society, we know they had quite a number of rights as well. Probably Egyptian women had the most, especially when it came to property. and to leave you with a few things for thought. The continuities and changes in social structure from Neolithic societies to the societies of the river valley civilizations. Think about it. Maybe take a few notes. Could show up in class, just saying. Analyze the similarities and differences in the politics and culture of ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. All right, guys, it's about that time. I'm going to go have some more coffee. So, from all of us here at, well, my office, have a great night, guys. Cheers.